So, as my football coach used to say, when practice interferes with your academics and schoolwork, F the schoolwork, okay?
I'm sure that's what he said. Yeah, all you young athletes out there.
No, but we're talking about, the next stage of dating, right? And especially you that you're single. All those dating sites and the sweep right and left and so on, I think dating has gotten too easy, too much variety. Those are not necessarily good things. And unfortunately, also fraught with all kinds of negatives, because I think we touched on this in a prior conversation about the fact that, say on Tinder, maybe a quarter of those on it are women, and they make all the decisions. Only 5-10% of guys are getting anything. The rest are going home to porn and fast food.
Yeah. Sexual activity is at lows, all-time lows, per capita.
Yeah, and certainly lower than in the 70s. The pre-HIV, post contraceptives and birth control.
I've been married 18 years. I thought it was super easy now to get laid on Tinder or something. I don't know. I've never.
There is a hookup culture.
There is a hookup culture,
but it's small numbers.
The people that it's easy for some people.
Because girls say we're a 10, and they're only going for guys that are at that upper echelon. Most guys aren't getting. Yeah. So, I tell girls, look, it's really not that difficult to date. I'll tell you, you don't need all that online dating. All you need is to know 5 things, okay? What's your blood pressure? What's your cholesterol? What's your blood sugar? What's your testosterone level? And do you have a job?
You're right. Yeah.
Right. And if you're negative on those, run. Like, you don't need to fool with that guy, right? Kind of. You'd be more successful doing that than dating some player that's also has 6 others on the hook.
Yeah.
So right now there's more. So some people have just unbelievable choice. And so that creates a dynamic. The guys that have tons of choice, what do you think they're doing?
Oh, I know. I've got a buddy that's why I thought it was just easy, because he's like, oh yeah, I got a 5 o'clock, I got a 6 o'clock.
Well, because all the girls want,
like, dude,
all the girls want those guys.
How does this happen?
Or 80% of the girls.
He's
want
the shiny object. He's the shiny object.
And so that culture is one of. I mean, he's dating multiple.
Who wants to be a part of that, though?
Well, he
pretty
seems pretty happy.
Well, yeah. He's not looking for a relationship either.
No. And they are, and no one's happy with it.
Right. Well, he knows who he is, though.
He does.
Sure.
See, I have a problem with the guys that pretend to want the family and the kids.
Oh, when they lie.
Right. And yet, they're exactly that friend of his.
Now, I don't hear what he's saying to them, but I know him. So.
Well, so the idea is for because people like to think that their experience is universal. So, what's happening to me is what's happening out there. And it's not. Life is divided. And I think this is one of the keys that makes your practice so successful is people are divided into subcultures. They're divided into niches. You have different genetics. You have different experiences. So for most guys, it's a bit of a dry spell.
Right. Yeah.
They're getting the girls. I had a friend. It's a great line. We drop it about every 3rd podcast. I'm looking for a girl with low self-esteem and a lot of enthusiasm. So for most guys, you're waiting to find the girl on the low ebb night.
With daddy issues?
Yeah.
Here's Valentine's Day when they're about to turn a big number. They'll date anyone. They're open. Right. They're like, whereas most days they're like, I want the king of the world. Right. So you have the large percentage of guys that are just waiting for the scraps. And it's funny, in deer culture, you have 2 types of mating strategies. You have the alpha buck males that are just can defeat anyone, and their genetics get passed on.
Right.
And then you have the ones that skulk around the outside of the thing, and they hide from that male. And they catch the girls, the does.
Waiting for the scraps.
When they're not available. So for the majority of guys, that's where they are. And there's a small percentage of guys where it just feels like a cornucopia of just endless plethora of choice.
And variety, yes.
And those guys, you end up kind of thinking, wow,
why settle?
Exactly.
Settle down.
the Seinfeld. Remember? Do you remember that show a long time ago?
Yeah, I love Seinfeld.
He always would find any little excuse, and he's like, "I'm out.
Yeah.
Let me find someone else."
She eats peas one at a time.
I'm out. So, but nobody.
I understood the man hands episode. I got that one.
Yeah.
Or the close talker. That's another one.
Yeah.
So, but what happens is women know that they have a half-life, right?
Yep.
No one's hornier than a childless woman in her 30s, right?
right.
Oh, they are good
Hey, hold on.
to.
That's when he got married.
They are
course
good.
it is.
Well, yeah, they are good
What
to
do you
go.
think?
So
Who do you think I found? No.
women have this time clock where they are very aware of it, and it affects their behavior for sure.
No, I can see that.
Men are always told you can have kids till you're 90.
Well, not if you have erectile dysfunction and low testicular function.
We're not told
and
about
poor
all that
self-esteem.
unless they listen
And you-
to the
and you
leverage.
They don't
You got a
have that.
big gut. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Unless they listen to the Leverage podcast, they don't know about all this stuff, and that's why people listen to this so they can get ahead of this.
the endothelial dysfunction.
I'm being the layman. You guys are the experts. Let me have my role. So most men, and you're married, so you don't have to worry
Right,
about this,
yeah.
but they think, oh, I've got what's the song? I've got all the time in the world, and so that's how they approach it.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is as you get older, and this is what I want to get into the nitrous oxide. that we-
Broadway is not coming a calling.
right.
Hey, it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
Even though you can still
For a Greek
reproduce,
guy.
Yeah.
even though you can still reproduce into your 80s,
Yes.
Right.
it's a lot different competing in the dating market
Against
when
the-
you're the 20-year-old
right.
or the early 30-year-old
You have to peak.
compared to when you're the 40-year-old who you still feel young, but as we're going to discuss, and I want
Right.
to what that entails. Now the girls have the option of the 20-year-old as well, and all of a sudden, even though in your head you're like, "Oh, I'm a buck till I'm 90.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be shooting blanks for a while." They
They're-
make the choice.
Yes.
Right.
So tell us what it is that makes us less attractive as we get older, even if we do all the weights and the thing and
Well,
do everything perfect.
Okay, so let me say, like a good wine or his 4 or 6-year-old whiskey that gets getting better.
Yep.
Many men do get better with age, but in ways that are not only more attractive to women who are smart enough to see those characteristics, but also in the way in which the man has control of negative impulses, becomes a mature individual about giving, being a great provider, responsible, self-accountable. Those characteristics, among others, okay, that do make a man more attractive with age. What you were referring to,
But
Is-
there's a counter force.
yeah, correct. So in the inner lining of our blood vessels, genetically speaking, we're giving a factory. That factory is one that produces a very important hormone called nitric oxide, which was the molecule of the decade in the 1980s. That's when it was discovered what it did, which is dilates your genitals.
How much do you know about nitrous oxide?
Not much. I know that you see it in supplements, weight training supplements, that it increases your muscle volume.
And
That's all I know about
the engorgement, the blood flow.
Do those supplements
the corpus cavernosum, right?
Do those supplements work?
No.
Yeah.
It's not
so
there are the top 5. So we're given, when we're born, we have a certain DNA template, and these proteins around our DNA called the epigenetics. And our environment influences the epigenetics, which then influence the DNA and the expression of certain genes. So in an optimal world, we peak sometime between the age of 17 and 25 in terms of nitric oxide production. And typically, this is a gas that's diffused into the wall of the artery and allows the artery to relax by decreasing by increasing something called cyclic GMP. So the muscle relaxes and blood goes into the penis and stays hard and stiff.
But not just the penis.
Well, if like you and I are
Like if
having
I'm
a
doing
conversation,
push-ups, it's nitrous oxide that
it increases blood flow to your muscle.
that does that.
The same at the coronary artery level. So when Josh runs 100 yards, ideally, if he has a healthy endothelium, which is the site where the nitric oxide is produced, then the blood flow, what is called the coronary blood flow, doubles, triples, even quintuples from the resting blood flow. So you're able to send more oxygen and nutrients to the pumping heart muscle. So the heart
is it safe to say nitrous oxide?
Nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide.
Yeah. It's not nuclear, okay? It's nitric oxide.
Have you noticed that I never pronounce any word correctly?
That's okay. We don't want to correct you.
Listen, because I try to use the original Greek pronunciation.
So what's your question?
Is it safe to say that it is literally the most important molecule for our function as animals?
Yes. So yes, I would say it's about the most important molecule outside of, say, God.
Water or oxygen.
I was waiting for Fred to recommend that before we have sex, we get naked and run 100 yards.
Yes.
With where you were going with that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, so the muscles will get blood flow, but when you're running 100 yards, your genitals are not getting the blood flow because of something called homeostasis. So we divert our blood to the exercising muscles because we need to flee or run from a lion or some dangerous situation, right? So the heart is a muscle. It has 3 major arteries, and the arteries have 3 layers. The inner layer is the endothelium, 1 cell thick, and that's
a Greek word.
Endothelium, yes.
I learned something today.
The word thick or endothelium?
Endothelium.
Good, yes. So that one produces the
thick,
nitric oxide.
Is a different color.
And the nitric oxide may have a half-life of anywhere from 4 seconds up to 30 seconds. When you're younger, you produce more endothelium by an enzyme called nitric oxide synthase. And it may last 30 seconds. So you have to produce it all the time.
So young people not only get better boners, but the boners last longer.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the arousal comes quicker.
Right.
So this is why premature ejaculation, young men that are not as, I want to be politically correct, they're shitty at doing sex compared to an older guy that is fit.
All the ladies listening to this podcast.
Guy can do it better.
Remember,
more experience.
You'd be better off with the gray-haired guy.
The art of seduction, right? Because you have just enough nitric oxide to double, triple your blood flow and maintain an erection, but you have the experience on seduction, on intimacy, because it involves all the senses, from your prefrontal cortex to that nucleus accumbens, telling the amygdala, just stay away from that. And then sending those signals from the hypothalamus down the spinal cord to the T12, L2 level. Where is the pudendal nerve? Pudendal is another Greek word. What's it mean?
Pudendal?
Yeah, it means I can. Puedo. Puedo means I can do it. And it goes out. This is where sometimes paraplegics can get great erections. And I've taught a couple how to do it.
Oh,
yeah.
You've taught them.
I taught the woman first. Get there.
That's interesting.
It's an intensive
That's
course.
why they call him Dr. Suave.
The Suave. Yeah. Now I'm understanding.
Yes. I mean, let's say you had the misfortune of becoming a paraplegic. You wouldn't want someone to take your wife, teach her how to
of course,
help you. All right? It's an intensive course.